But where we're at today is the most important thing is this is a very, very complicated process, and there's lots of people who effectively have a veto right over the survival of the club, and that's not of my doing or of anyone else's doing. It's just the legal process that we have. So there are people out there who could say we don't want this club to be rescued, and we think we'd be better off if it failed. And my contention from the beginning was that you know, it's in no one's interest to see this club fail. It's in everyone's interest to see this club thrive and move forward. And that is certainly all of the stakeholders, the people that effectively have that veto right, have been incredibly supportive, and thus far have made it clear that they want to see this club survive, move forward, and so on. So we are still waiting formal approvals from a couple of parties, but the indications are very positive. We do have a very geeky but competent professional team, both internally and our advisors, who've been working on this, and as soon as we can close this transaction, we'll close it. But until we get there, unfortunately, there's always going to be that bit of risk, and all we can do, I think I can probably admit that at one of the contingency plan meetings, I felt that Ian Newell asked me the question, which is very unfair, as to what I thought the percentage chance of the club surviving was, and it was 10%. I didn't think that BIL was likely to perform at that time, and because we weren't being engaged by the administrator, I thought the future for the club was very, very bleak. It is now, in my judgment, famous last words, is looking very, very positive, so fingers crossed. Anyway, sorry, I've talked much more than I intended to, but as I say, there's no restriction on questions. I mean, any questions that people want to ask, if I can answer them, I'll certainly try.
I mean, what we normally do, James, and you stay at the rostrum, because I've got a big mouth. But what we'll do is we'll take 2 questions to James at a time upon my indication. So if we have a show of hands who wants to ask the question, and I'll take.
Welcome to our club.
Thank you.
My question is quite simple, really. When you first raised your head above the parapet in taking over the club, you were slightly reticent about the whole project. Subsequently, I've noticed you're still talking about the club being the ground itself being bought by the city council, and yet this week you're also still talking about, or you're now talking about, the redevelopment of the South Stand. In fact, those of us that inhabit the South Stand, this is of some interest to us.
Would that be positive or negative?
Oh, I'm very positive. I'm very positive about it being redeveloped. So my first question then is, will it be redeveloped? In which case, by whom? And the allied question to that is, what happens to all the rest of the car park? What are your plans for that? If you're not selling that back to the city council.
That's brilliant. Could I just start by answering the reluctant bidder question, because I think that's it's a very valid point, and I think part of this was articulation, and part of it was where we stood. My view from the outset was that I'm not a football fan, or I haven't been a football fan. I may be different by the end of today, and what I'm not willing to do is to chuck money willy-nilly at any football club, or indeed any rugby club or anything else. And there was the possibility, and secondly, I think in an ideal world, particularly in this current economic environment, in the ideal world, government should not be putting money into football stadiums. Sorry, I do apologise. So that was the starting position. So if there was someone who had a passion for Plymouth Argyle Football Club and wanted to put money in, and there was no need for public sector intervention, that person had my full support, and they would have had my full support. The issue was that we haven't found, or the administrators haven't found that sugar daddy, so it's now preserving the asset for the community and moving it forward. So what I also said, and the first bit was reported more because it was more newsworthy, and the second bit was less reported, was I said that I was a reluctant bidder, but I'd be a very enthusiastic owner. It now looks like we're moving into the ownership bit, so there is no lack of enthusiasm, trust me on that. On the question of the land around the stadium, as a starter for Ted, the area action plan, in my view, is very sensible, it's very balanced. I think there is, from a city standpoint, it's important to see this area tidied up. I personally think that the Life Centre is a staggering asset, not just for Plymouth, but for the southwest. And people argue about colour schemes and shapes and so on, but it's a great asset. And I think the football stadium and the surrounding land should complement that asset. Um, the truth of it is that because we didn't approach this as a property play, because we approached it hoping that our bid wouldn't be called to rescue the club, we didn't do any sort of real work on the land by the South Stadium. As it became more likely that we would end up buying it, we have done some work, and we think there is a viable development there. And if that proves to be the case, then we will clearly develop it and take the South Stadium, the South Stand into that development.
And the rest of the ground?
Okay, we're answering my question.
And the rest of the land outside the I mean
Not yet to be decided.
well no, I mean the AAP restricts it to leisure, sporting and associated uses, which I think is absolutely right for the area. I mean there's and again I could bore people on why I don't think it's right to drag retail out of the city centre. We've got and clearly everyone understands better than I the importance of Central Park and not sort of messing with that. But yes, I think there is a viable development, and that is part of what will drive the completion of the stadium.
Okay, gentleman's had his question answered. So anyone else?
Where are we in terms of any other third party coming with a potential bid that could then usurp all the activity that you've taken place?
Well, that's a sort of risk that we've taken, but the problem that we've got is as I say, it's very complex, and we have a position which is, again, slightly embarrassing saying this in front of people that have been suffering this most, but we have a totally unsatisfactory position with the staff and players, and they've effectively been funding this administration, which I've never seen before. So the pressure on us is to get something done so the staff can be properly paid, and what would be lovely is to have a legal agreement signed with the administrator that gave us exclusivity to get on and do it. But if that's going to delay the process, I'd rather crack on and just do the transaction. I mean, if BIL, find the money somewhere, then that's a risk that exists. Or indeed, if whatever the chimpanzees do.
Gentleman.
Mr. Brent, good morning. You're very welcome, and we're very pleased to see you. I, like everybody else in this room, we love our club. We don't want it to die. But should you take over the club, or should you have an active part in the club, would there be room for a board member that is elected by the Argyle Fans Trust on the board to represent the fans' interests?
Well, and again, shoot me down for this, but football governance, corporate governance, the way in which football clubs are managed, I think has been, and it's not Plymouth Argyle I'm referring to, it's the industry. I've been astounded by what I've learned over the last 6 months. I mean, in the businesses that I'm involved in, what you first of all do is you appoint a board, and then the board appoints the chairman and the chief executive. And what you do is you try to hire the best people, the board members, the chairman, the chief executive, who are best to do the job that they're seeking to do. Now, there is absolutely no doubt in my mind that there needs to be proper fan engagement, and if the board of directors did not have a strong representation of the fan base, I would be astounded. But do I think that the trust should have the right to nominate a director? I think that's potentially dangerous. Not because on day one the nominee would be great, and then something might happen going forward where the nominee is not up to the job of acting as a director. So as I say, I would be amazed if we'll go through a very transparent, open process to select the board of directors. The board of directors will try and find the best chairman, chief executive to run the club, and I'd be amazed if there weren't Plymouth Argyle fans who most probably would also be members of the trust, I guess, given the trust's backing on their board.
Okay, anyone else, James?
Would part of the financing of this new club, would it come through
a share issue, which we supporters could involve ourselves in.
Well, I mean, I'm very keen to I'm very keen to see the supporter base invest in the club. Yes, I mean the technical issues are that there's a whole series of regulatory issues when you have more than a certain number of shareholders investing in a club, which we need to go through, and we can't. What we mustn't do is find that we raise £200,000 and spend £250,000 on lawyers and accountants. So we need to find an effective mechanism to do that. What we also need to do is to make sure that the club is in good financial state before the supporters invest. And you know, people tell me that the reason that the fan base is investing is not for a financial return; it's because they want to support their club. But from my standpoint, while there is fragility in the club's finances, I don't want the fan base to put their money at risk. I mean, so we'll stabilise the club. We'll try and work out a way, if Chris and his colleagues are willing to help guide us on what works for the fans, we'll try to work out a way which enables us to get proper fan base involvement and investment in a way which doesn't, as I say, cost a fortune to put in place.
Anyone else? Sure. Question. Yes. Go ahead.
James, you've alluded to your lack of knowledge, perhaps, on the football side of things, but have you got a vision as to what you see or how you see the football side of the club being run?
I mean, my job, as I said, if I'm successful, is to put in place a process, I'd say, to recruit a very good board of directors, and then to work with that group of directors to hire a chairman and chief executive, and for that chairman and chief executive to drive the club forward. I mean, for me, at my age, to try and learn football and to guess as to who was a great player of the future and who wasn't, I mean, it would be a joke, and I'm not. So as part of that process, I should hasten to add that Peter Ridsdale, and I'll say it, and if people want to critique me on it, that's fine, but Peter Ridsdale to me has been an incredibly important person in keeping this club alive. And people talk about his motivations and so on. I don't really care about that, but he's been a very good person in keeping his club alive. I think he's got football smarts beyond anything else I've seen, and he would have been a sort of very able chairman of a football club with an appropriate governance structure in place. But Peter has decided that he doesn't want to take up that role, and so we need to find a football smart chairman who also understands business and economics to sort of take that role.